dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
2016, year of the snake. Time for a change in the White House, y'all. Bring it.
Hey! Yes. Yes. Recently you saw me on Breitbart? Is that me at the rally? Karen, is that me at the reopen rally with my cape? Or is there a new one on Breitbart I didn't know about? I don't know. I don't look up myself. Yes, that was a good one, right? That's I love that clip. I love that clip. I never know, Karen. I was, sometimes you just get the media in the right place at the right time. So we'll see how that goes. We will see how that goes.
Socialist Sanders, that freaking Flanders, Army Rangers and the Navy SEALs, all staying strong with the art of the deal. If you like your eyes, if you love your lungs, one choice, the only one. When I say Trump, you say hell high. When I say Trump, you say hell high. America, make America great again. Make America, make America great again. Make America, make America great again. Time to make America great again.
Good morning, Catherine. How are you? Good to see y'all. Thank you, Karen. I like that one too. Little humor, little jokes. Girls got jokes. You know me, girl. I got jokes. Even when I'm trolling, doing politics, you still gotta have some jokes. You got to, because these people are crazy. You have to be able to laugh at these people, or you're going to go insane. So you're not going to find this on my regular page, because my regular page is in Facebook jail. We're going to talk about that. They're very mad at me for telling you things that, well, basically just sharing news articles. They are mad at me for sharing news articles. Yeah, Zuckerberg doesn't like me sharing news. So, ridiculous. Hello, everybody. Welcome. You're watching Trump Talk US. Hello, I'm Suzzanne. Oh, hold up. No. We get it. Ads. Always ads. Remember when you could just watch a video? Those are good times. Hello, everybody. You are watching Trump Talk US live in DC with Suzzanne Monk. I'm Suzzanne Monk. We are 8 minutes away from the Capitol. We're 15 minutes away from the White House. There's a beautiful sunset out towards the monument. Right out there outside my office window. We have to keep the curtains closed because the glare it makes you look kind of weird. And I already look pretty pasty in the light. So we do the best we can. I want to, of course, welcome Chris McDonald when he pops in the room. He's going to be representing Trump Talk US. It might take him a minute to figure out, to find it, because Facebook has put me in Facebook jail for sharing an article from the New York Post that talked about doctors, a poll of doctors that agreed that hydroxychloroquine was the best treatment they had found so far for COVID-19. I just shared the article. I didn't comment. I didn't add a paragraph. I didn't draw like Nazi symbols on the article. I did nothing inappropriate. I shared an article from the New York Post, and I am now 30 days Facebook jail in both Suzzanne Monk accounts. They've obviously decided that those two accounts are linked, and so whatever one gets, the other one gets. And so I can never use that alt account as an alt account because it gets in the same Facebook jail as the Post account. It does not work. So here we are. Yes, my good friend Chesty LaRue let folks know that I'm in Facebook jail, and she's a gem for doing that. But this is the game we have to play with people. This is the game we continue to have to deal with. I'm going to be calling the New York Post tomorrow, getting in contact with the author of the article and with their editorial board and letting them know that Facebook is banning their articles. And I can show them that it's happening. So we're going to see where that goes. Obviously, we are here still on Trump Talk US. We're also broadcasting now on Reopen America. I want to welcome all of my Reopen America followers. I want to thank you guys for following this movement and following what we've been doing for so long since March. Since the beginning of this movement, we've been working very hard. Carol, good to see you. Rhonda, good to see you. Carol, the answer is yes on the question you asked me the other day. I'm going to send you a text on the thing. It's a go. Operation go to the you-know-what is go. You know what I'm talking about. So I do want to welcome everybody from Reopen America. We had a Reopen America DC rally this weekend, very small. We have a bunch of protests. I'm going to tell you why it's small. We have a bunch of protesters here in Washington, D.C. for the Black Lives Matter protests. Now, I was at the Black Lives Matter protest on Saturday and on Thursday. So I've been there a couple days, and we were down at the White House after the Black Lives Matter protest had basically cleared up from the park on, I believe it was one of the first nights, night one or night two. So I think night one, or definitely night two, one of these nights, like early on. It's been like a week and everybody's been protesting today. Preachers, politicians pandering, Mitt Romney coming down and marching, the mayor of DC painting Black Lives Matter all the way up the road and doing just so much damage to the city morally and psychologically with her support for the violent and anti-citizen agenda of defunding the police, dismantling police departments, ending policing, which is absolutely the most ridiculous thing in the world. As we know, it stems from a place of thank you, Sherry. It stems from a place of collectivism, of communism, of this ideology. It stems from a place of wanting to break down our society as we see it, a free market capitalist society with private property ownership, which is so important. So therein lies the problem. Now, I was down at the event. Let me talk about what happened at the events over the 2 days that I was there. And then we're going to come back around to why it's important that we work on reopening America even harder than ever before because of what we've seen over the last week in regards to riots, to damages, and to looting, and so many things that we shouldn't have to see and we shouldn't ever see, that are just it's not functional, it doesn't accomplish anything, and it harms the people usually that you're trying to defend. So we had rallies, protests / riots here in DC for, let's look at the calendar. Today is Monday. A week easily. We saw in the early few riots, protests, they became violent. Early on, we had a lot of people. That's right. Welcome, Chris. Everybody, Chris McDonald, for representing us in the room here. That's my Monkin. We had agitators. Obviously, a lot of the Antifa agitators came in early to commit damage, graffiti, starting fires, throwing firecrackers at police, throwing projectiles at police, throwing rocks, etc., breaking windows, trying to break into locations. I have not been down, Sherry, I have not been down today, but I do know that there was a group of pastors, I believe, that was supposed to be marching today, earlier in the day. So I'm assuming there are still people down there. We haven't been down. I was down there yesterday. I was down there Saturday. I can't be there every minute, but they are weaning, and I'm going to tell you that as we go forward, talk about what happened yesterday and what happened Saturday. I can tell you we are getting to that point where people are just, they got to go home. They can't live here. If they don't live here, they can't keep doing this, and if they do live here, they're getting bored. Everybody can't keep doing it forever. So the early protests were the ones that were most violent, that caused the most reaction from police and obviously from Secret Service. The first night being the most aggressive, with people trying to storm the fence, with people trying to get over the fence of the Treasury. One individual actually did. He was arrested, later released. That's when we saw a lot of the damage to the Treasury Department as far as graffiti, a lot of the damage there in the park as far as graffiti. But no one got into the White House lawn. No one got into the White House. They tried to give us this. This was the night of the bunker and so on and so forth. That the White House had gone dark. The left really tried to make it seem that they had ransacked the White House, when in fact that wasn't even close to what happened. No one got anywhere near the White House, as would be expected, because the White House is a very secure building. Obviously, it did require some immediate police reaction, Secret Service reaction, Park Police reaction, to be in a defensive fashion, and officers were injured because there was an aggressive physical assault. And that returned the next night. We saw that again, returning the next night. And again the third night. Okay. Now, I would love to say that even up until Saturday, the protests were getting more peaceful. People have said. And so, and in fact, when I was there, the protests have been peaceful, but I of course have seen the footage, I've seen the video, I've seen the damage of when the protests were not peaceful. I've seen the fires, I've seen the melted places where they burned down the patio umbrellas, places where they had lit car fires, trees had burned. You can see the damage. You can see, thank you, Angel. You can see what has been done down there as far as damage. Now, let me say this. Even Saturday, which I was there from like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, held my signs telling people to try to take the Democrats to task on this. It is the Democrat cities that are putting a lot of these bad cops on the street, that are having a lot of these policing citizen interaction problems. Chicago, for example, New York, for example. These are not Republican-run cities. You can't come and be mad at the president because he's a Republican. He's not doing it. It's not the president. It's your governor. It's your mayor. It's your chief of police that they have selected, that your governor or mayor, that your mayor is selected. These are the people you have to hold accountable, the people who can actually fix the problem. So yes, I was down there Saturday. I was there from like 2 until 9. Predominantly peaceful. If you disagreed with them, they did get a little verbally aggressive. And of course, they always have their cute little spotters. I love this little skinny white girls. So I get the bullhorn out. I start to talk to people loudly about you need to hold both parties accountable. It's the Democrats. Amy Klobuchar is the one who has let David Chauvin off several times in his previous record. Okay, Keith Ellison is the one who is increasing the charges in such a way that will actually make it harder to convict these gentlemen, not easier. So very likely that it's Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin will be let off because of the charges they do it all the time. They go for first degree murder or second degree murder when they know that can't be proved. But instead of throw the book, instead of go for all the charges, they go for that top one and they leave out third degree manslaughter. They leave out the lesser charges, which, as we know, he was charged with earlier. But Keith Ellison has come in and upped the charges, which. Okay, it's what they do. We've seen it a million times. It goes around and around in a circle every single time. We've seen the exact same process over and over again. This is how the Democrats do it. They get the black community all riled up over some black person who has been killed by a police officer, a white police officer. They get everyone riled up on police brutality, and then they literally actively work to prevent those cops. They work with their Democrat friends to prevent those cops from actually going to jail. Yeah. They do it on purpose. They do it on purpose. So we did see 2 attempts, 1 successful at flag burning, but I say successful in that kind of so the first one, this girl and this skinny little, Antifa, probably Antifa. What do they call it when you're pledge? Maybe a pledge. You're being checked out still. When it might have been his little thing he had to do to prove that he was brave enough to be an Antifa. So they tried to put hand sanitizer on the flag and just pour a little bit on, and then the flag would light up. But that doesn't work because isopropyl alcohol doesn't burn very much. So, and Tracy, I may agree with you or I may not. There's a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions, Tracy. I agree 100%. There are a ton of questions. Thank you, Jenna. Love you too. So, they didn't burn it. And so then this black gentleman came over and he got mad at them and he tried to grab the flag away from them. And then they ripped the flag. And so they had their little torn flag. They marched off with it. They did not succeed in burning it. But they did rip it up. I mean, they destroyed their own flag. It was stupid. The second attempt, they had a flag that they had already defaced. So, let me just say on the issue of flag burning, I know some people get very upset, okay? And they are emotional about the flag. I don't like to see the flag burned. I think it's a tragedy when you see someone who feels so angry at their government that they want to burn the flag of their own government. But I agree with the Supreme Court. It is a expression. It is a First Amendment expression. And I do, of course, then support people's right to do it safely, of course, safely. And that's where we always have a concern. You don't want to harm anything else in the process, in your symbolism. Now, the other thing is this. Flags that have been defaced or have been used and have become tattered and worn, they are burned. They're incinerated. That's their proper burial. So, in a way, since they already defaced the flag, their burning of the flag, kind of appropriate. This flag probably needed to be burned. Poor flag put it out of its misery. So they laid on the ground. They poured all the hand sanitizer. So now it kind of burns slowly. Then they got it to finally get burning, and it's like a little marshmallow fire. And this woman came over, and she had a sign. And I was worried that they were going to light signs on fire. And I was like, "Hey, you guys, don't make the fire bigger, okay? You're the first. This is your right to burn the flag, whatever. But let's don't make any bigger fires." And the woman that had come in, she put the sign down over the fire and put the fire out. And then she cussed everybody out. She told off all these people that this is what we're about. She admonished the 2 little white kids who were doing it. It was just 2 little skinny white boys. And she did a little "No justice, no peace" chant, whatever that means. I never understand exactly what they mean by no peace. Are we gonna just literally be loud all the time? Is that no peace? I'm just confused. There's a lot to be confused about when it comes to what the message really is, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But so that was pretty non-violent. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's violent-ish by the time you're trying to burn a flag, but they did it really bad. It was really sucky, and they got kind of told off by the grown-up. And I went to thank her, and she's like, "Oh, of course." I'm like, "Yeah, I just appreciate you standing up for what's right and not getting crazy and not getting violent, peaceful protest, and that's what it's all about." She's like, "Yeah, thank you." She's like, "Thank you. We had a good moment." Like she appreciated my appreciation. All good. All good. But as we're leaving, I'm leaving with my friend Helena. Bless her heart. Thank you for coming, Helena, and for standing with me. You always need you need someone to have your back when you're there, sending a different message, because the left does not want you to send a different message. They get mad if you send that message too loudly. They get mad if you get aggressive with letting people know that there's an alternative to their agenda. So on the way back, even on Saturday, Helena and I witnessed an attempt to break in and loot a local corner bakery, literally called the Corner Bakery. Corner Bakery, it's a chain store here in Washington. We called police. We hailed police down. In addition to calling them, sent them over to the location, sent additional officers up the street, even more officers down to the location. When we drove by yesterday, the business had been boarded up. So I do know that the window had been broken, but not breached. And so there was probably some damage to the window, but I do not believe, from what we saw of the action, no one had gotten into the building. So we were able to prevent that looting, that break-in. But that was still on Saturday. There are still roving gangs of kids trying to loot, trying to break in, trying to commit crimes, even on Saturday. Now, they didn't have 1 million people. You guys, it was nowhere near 1 million people at all. They said, "Oh, there's going to be 1 million people in DC over the weekend." There was not. There was not 1 million people, one in any way whatsoever. Not even 100,000. 50,000 times. Easy. Hardly, I mean, and what I'm seeing, and what certainly I think Helena would agree with, is that as the event has become two things. One, it has become a social event. So there's a lot of folks who are there for a social activity, meet other people, flirt, hang out, look cute, carry your cute little "I'm not a racist" sign, whatever it is. It's kind of funny, all the white people with their "I'm not a racist" signs makes you feel like they kind of are. Some of the signs you're like, that's a pretty racist sign though, ma'am. Like, I get you want to feel solidarity, but you might have gone over the line of solidarity. Thank you, Oneida. Thank you, Angel. Thank you. You might have gone over the line of solidarity and into pandering racism. And that's in many cases. Sometimes you see this, and particularly in action. Now, I find it very interesting that in this rally, in the Saturday rally. Now, I didn't notice this so much in the Thursday rally that I was at with Ben Burkham and Will Johnson, where we went into the crowd, and Will Johnson took an opportunity as a black man to tell people that he did not think Trump was a racist. And they got very mad at us, and they yelled, and we, quietly got yelled at, and we had conversations, and, it was certainly very focused on what I'm going to actually call the ritual of this rally. Now, it's funny. Yeah, Karen, I'm gonna just pop this up real quick. I did see the Dems in their kente cloth scarves on their knees with their little hats or whatever. So pandering, so embarrassing. And it only happens every 4 years. And they pretend this little game, and it's disturbing and disgusting on every level. And we know it, and why everybody else doesn't see it for what it is, I've yet to understand, but we continue to try to red pill. We continue to try to talk to people. So what I found at the Saturday rally, and I'm pretty sure you would find this across the country, because I think that the impetus for these rallies was not started by natural outpouring from Black Lives Matter. The media took the story because, see, look, we had Ahmaud Arbery. We had the Ahmaud Arbery situation. And certainly everyone was concerned about that. Everyone was riled up. People were mad, but we weren't seeing these huge protests like we saw for George Floyd. So I believe that what was really happening is an attempt to sort of get the energy going and to sort of test the waters to see if people would be motivated to come out, if they would be too concerned to come out. And certainly the George Floyd situation made a perfect opportunity for the Democrats to go hog wild. Hello, Virginia, how are you? To go hog wild on this idea of, all right, let's come out, let's protest, let's have this big outcry for racism based on this story of police brutality. And really what happened is, early on, the people who were organizing it were sending out the violent Antifa leftists early from the beginning. So we saw riots early on because they wanted regular folks, they didn't want folks to come and counter protest. They didn't want us to feel safe. They didn't want people to feel safe even going to these protests unless you are willing to allow this sort of violence and destruction. So if you do that violence and destruction early, it certainly controls the population. It does something specific to the minds of, and particularly our side, particularly people like Lesnar. They've been very effective, actually, in keeping us patriots from going and standing in defense of the law enforcement, in defense of, they're trying to make us feel overwhelmed. And they say it all the time. They're very honest about it. They're trying to make patriots, people who support law and order, they're trying to make us feel overwhelmed. They're trying to make us feel like there's more than them, and the world is crashing in their direction, and they can burn down police departments, all of this stuff. They want us to feel that we're not in control. And they did it through a lot of deception. In addition to committing actual violence, they also, amplified, that's the word I'm looking for, amplified the violence that they did on a variety of levels falsely. For example, they did this whole hashtag dark White House or something, where they claimed that the White House was so afraid that it turned off all the lights, when actually they were using a movie picture, a picture from a film that had the White House in it, in which it had darkened the usual even candles and the light illuminations. But the reality is, every single night at 11 o'clock, the White House turns the front lights off. It does go dark. There's always little lights in the windows, but it goes dark. It's a security measure. I'm sure it also saves some electricity. You'd think the left would like that, but they used that as a big thing, like they had caused it somehow, when all they had done is nothing. The lights turned off at 11 when they were supposed to, and the fakeness of the total darkness was a complete hoax. Just like the pictures of the Lincoln Memorial, where they show the Lincoln Memorial all damaged, and like the head broken, and it's all spray painted, but it's spray painted flat, even though the object is curved. Photoshopped. It's fake. The Lincoln Memorial was not damaged. It's tall. You guys have no idea how tall it is. To think that they could just climb up on it like that and damage it that profusely and damage the wall behind it without like serious ladders is insane. It is not possible. What you saw in the image, fake, utterly fake. And that's what I'm saying. They're faking this idea that the White House went dark because of them, that Trump went into the bunker because of them. There have been credible terrorist threats throughout this process of riots here in DC. There have been credible terrorist threats against the president, which is why we've had to take additional security measures. Luckily, we've had law enforcement and U.S. military, from National Guard from around the country here, law enforcement officers from around the country here serving and protecting this city from a genuine onslaught that was very well funded in the early days here in different cities around the country. Then they moved those exact individuals, send them to new locations, so that you don't need this huge army. You just need to send your agitators to the new location each night. You get people riled up, a couple nights, and then you send them on. And so that's what we've seen. Certainly, we've seen it here in DC. We've seen it across the country, from Minneapolis, and then spreading out to other cities across the country. So now, unfortunately, this is what happened. What happened at Saturday's rally, and I believe what has happened throughout the time. There was a good contingent of people, I would say, at Saturday's rally that were there, genuinely Black people, genuinely concerned about liberty, about policing issues, people who had genuinely just concerned for Black lives. What the slogan says, not what the organization does, because Black Lives Matter, if you read what they're about, they're a communistic organization believing in the disbanding and dissolving of police. They're extremely Black segregationist, Black supremacist, even, I would argue, in many ways. And, in a by any means sort of angry Malcolm X agenda. So, however, there were a lot of folks there who are there for a genuine reason, who are there to speak about things important, such as police reform, such as community building, and inequities that are perceived, I believe personally, economically, that a lot of these inequities are economic. Now, in the urban areas, you'll see a lot more of the Black community being in that lower economic bracket. In the more rural communities, you see a lot of white folks in that economic bracket in a smaller, in smaller pockets, still as many in number, in fact, more so, but all over the country in smaller towns and medium-sized towns and small cities across the country. You'll see that even here in DC, you'll see, people in the poor white people in the community, poor Hispanics. It really comes down to an economic balance that people who have limited resources have the access to jobs, have the access to services, have the access to foods and stores and, life. And in many cases, in many cities, yes, but the services that we see in the working class and the poor community are less, and often are less because of the Democrat policies that continue to take revenue and resources under the guise of a program to help. We're going to aid the poor. So many programs, but programs are just taking money from taxpayers that they could be keeping in their own pocket and spending in the community and creating jobs and businesses for one another, because there's money and resources to spend. Taking those tax dollars, and instead of putting them really now they're not in the community inherently. So there's that. But in addition to that, the tax dollars go to their crony friends with their little organizations or whatever. That's where the money goes. It gets used to throw fancy parties and, pay fat salaries of lobbyist types, and it never gets to the people. It never gets to the people. So they're stealing our tax dollars. They're stealing our money. They're using it on these programs that help no one. And they've done that for decades and decades. You've seen the demoralization of the inner cities because of that. And they prey on the Black community, particularly because of the easy race card that, as you can see, can be quickly drawn and played in the political arena. So They've created this chaos, and that chaos certainly has silenced and quieted the reopen agenda. Now, I find it interesting. I find it interesting that what we are seeing is, however, we're seeing people wake up to the idea that if we can have all these protesters, if we can have all these gatherings, we can reopen. And we're already seeing the government, the Democrat governors, as I said from the beginning, it's so frustrating, push back on that, push back and push against the openers, the reopeners, folks like me and you who want to go back to work, who want to get our businesses open, who want to get our restaurants open, not 50%, not with everybody in masks and plastic and shower curtains around the tables and teddy bears sitting at the table next to us, whatever dumb thing they've come up with to try to make this horrible idea of social distancing better in any way, which it's not. If they can protest, we can pray. We can meet in prayer. We can produce. We can reopen our city, our country, our factories, our jobs. And so we had a Reopen DC rally on Sunday here in Washington, D.C., and we are working. It's interesting that I am now in Facebook jail on my main accounts, and certainly they're trying to silence me in that way, because we are starting a campaign to raise funds. Chris, if you could find the link to the GoFundMe, I think it's on one of the pages there. If you can find the link to the GoFundMe for Muriel Bowser. We are trying to raise funds to get a mobile billboard that will go around and say, if people can riot, we can reopen. Muriel Bowser, reopen DC and resign now, because she has been so horrible. We're going to air some grievances. We're going to talk about some of the things she's been done wrong. I'm working on graphics over the next 2 days. We've raised a little over $600 right now. I'm pretty proud of that, but we need at least about $1,800 to do 2 days, to do 2 days or so of mobile billboard. I'm looking to raise about $3,500 so we can do a whole week. So please, there's Chris has the link here. I'm going to put this up. It's kind of long, but you can also do a search for Tell DC Mayor to Resign Now on a mobile billboard. When you go over there, please contribute. Please contribute. We are getting closer and closer to being able to make this a possibility. I've already raised enough to start the printing process, which was about $525, which will do the printing and the graphics. So we're at that good first point, but we just got to raise money to do the actual driving around. So help me out, you guys. Help me out, and share with your friends. Go to the link. Please share with your friends. I'm in Facebook jail, you guys. This is why they're putting me in Facebook jail, because I'm actually getting stuff done and making a stink, and they don't like it. They don't like it. So Jenna, I don't trust it. She says this: I don't trust the deep state commies and media, but what's your take on Floyd still alive? I don't know. I'm suspending thoughts on either way of that. It is, of course, possible. I do not put it past the deep state to do a full false flag. But I am acting on the principle that, and this is actually true, we do need to hold our police officers accountable, but we need to hold our unions accountable. We need to hold the mayors that are hiring our police chiefs accountable, that are setting these policies. These are the people, they need to be held accountable anyway. Not just right now because of this one obviously creepy, very odd, a whole bunch of questions situation, but from all the situations, from all time, from every day, from different varieties of ways in which police operate within the community. For example, in Chicago on the south side, they have way too many cop cameras and not enough actual policing, not enough beat cops. I think with the same thing actually here in the southeast in DC, we could use more beat cops. We could use more officers that are just in the community, that get to know the neighbors, get to know the community. So when you have a situation, when there's something that goes wrong, when there's an act of violence or danger and the community needs to report that crime, they have a comfortable relationship with their local law enforcement. The guy that's probably going to come out or is going to be the guy they see all the time, or it's going to be his friend, his partner. You're going to have that positive connection with law enforcement, with your beat cop, with law enforcement that engages the community. Community policing is what we need. We need more of it. We should actually not be defunding the police. How's it going, Nick? We should be funding the police, not defund, fund. Fund. We need to send more officers out. We need actually more law enforcement to have that relationship with the community, have an effective relationship with the community. In cities, in urban areas where we see more crime occurring, we need more law enforcement. The reason crime increases is because you do not have people there to enforce the law. And you do not have a judicial system that is holding these criminals accountable. That's the other thing we saw in Chicago all the time is once you actually arrest these folks and get them off the streets, people who are committing violent crimes, dangerous activity, you arrest them, you get them off the streets, almost invariably, even in grave violent situations, gunshots, assault with a deadly weapon, armed robbery, you'll see folks get out very quickly. Very short sentences. It was sort of the court system was a revolving door. And that's a grave concern, that the people that we're putting on the bench and the people we're putting in the prosecutor's office are not getting the job done and thus not deterring the crime. And so that doesn't suggest we defund those things. That suggests we fund more of them. And certainly one of the things we need to address and we need to start working on is the ability of police departments to fire officers that are bad. Because as we know, unions do a tremendous amount of pressure to keep cops that are on the force, good or bad, on the force, making it very difficult. They've signed many contracts in many cities, making it very difficult to fire a police officer. And so, of course, that makes it difficult to get rid of bad police officers. So we certainly need some reforms in that way, but we don't need to defund. And this is when you see the Black Lives Matter agenda for defund and all of this, that's where you see the official top-down Black Lives Matter agenda. That agenda that's connecting with the Antifa, with the left, with the radical left, who are the Trump Pence out now folks. As we've seen, let me see if I can pull this up. I'm gonna pop over here on my Facebook a second, so please excuse me. And I think I have to go over to Suzzanne's account because that is where the video would be. And let's see. I'm going to show you the clip from my friend Christy Fegan, who was out. Give me just a second. I'm scrolling down, so please be patient. I do post a lot when I'm allowed to, when I have not been put into Facebook jail. Getting closer. Okay. It's worth it, you guys. You're gonna appreciate. It's worth it in a minute. We just have to go. Now we're at the reopen pie. Right. Here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this up. Let me share the screen real quick with you guys. Great. Thank you for being patient, everyone. Great. So I'm just we're going to pull that up full screen here. We're going to try to. Excuse the language, you guys. Now, I'm going to show you These are all three. So the white girl, white guy. That's another white girl. I'll add in the orange shirt people. They have one black girl holding the orange shirt. But for the vast majority, you see these white people who are hijacking the Black Lives Matter rally. They're literally actively hijacking that rally. It's not about George Floyd. It's about this white guy and his agenda to make them angry, make this crowd angry at President Trump, to make it about President Trump. So, yeah, and he's here recruiting people. See, look at this is like white girl, white dude, white girl, white guy. That's one black girl there, but the rest of them, as I've shown you right there, it was a bunch of white liberals hijacking the movement. We see this again and again. The folks that are being violent, that's part of the coordinated top-down. Black Lives Matter sets up the energy and the emotion to get people who are genuinely out there just to protest against police brutality, to sort of get the numbers up. But they certainly are bringing out all of their Antifa, all of their lefty organizations, bringing them out with their alternative agenda that has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. And they think psychologically that by combining those two activities, by combining people screaming F Trump with people chanting for justice for George Floyd, that they will win back black voters. Because what we are seeing in the polls, what we are seeing in the statistics over and over again, how's it going, Periscope folks? What we are seeing again and again are black voters turning away from the Democrat Party and increasing their approval rating of President Donald J. Trump. We're now looking at record high approval ratings from the black community of President Trump. So that message that they were trying so hard by protesting at the White House, with the mayor's help, writing Black Lives Matter right there on the street, working so hard to try to make this issue, how's it going, Christina, about President Trump when it's not, is failing. I can tell you from personal experience that isn't working. And the numbers we're seeing, when you say, how is this possible when there's so many people, angry black protesters, how is it possible that Trump's rating is going up with black voters? Well, I'm going to tell you, the black people I talked to at the rally were fed up with the Democrats. Now, I don't know if they're going to vote for Trump. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe they won't vote at all. I know a lot of black folks that will and have and did vote for Trump. I know a lot. I have a lot of black friends who have voted for Trump, a ton. But these folks that I talked to at the Black Lives Matter protest, you guys marching around with the signs, black folks, I've got my sign. Democrats use Black Lives to get votes. Democrat unions keep bad cops in power, defund unions. Boom. I've got all that. This is what I'm saying. Blacks are being used by the Democrats. Why are blacks voting for Democrats? They came up and they talked to me again and again. And 9 times out of 10 was, you're right. You're right. That's correct. The Democrats do use us. The Democrats do just pander for votes. The Democrats don't care about black lives. The Democrats are going to let George Floyd's killer off. They are the ones responsible for him being there on the police force, not prosecuting Derek Chauvin in the past. Amy Klobuchar did that. So it's the Democrats, and they knew it. Every black person that would come up and talk to me about it, boom. Yep, 100%. You're right. Now, I'm not saying they're Republicans. I'm saying they've become skeptical of the Democrat Party. So, yeah, I've seen the training video, Sherry, and I've seen some even, there's stuff about Antifa that you'd be shocked to hear, but I don't want to get off on a tangent of that, because I want to talk about what we're actually seeing. is that the Democrats are losing that component. Okay. They're losing the battle. They're fighting for those votes. They're fighting for that message that, oh, the Democrats are on your side. They bow, they wear the kente cloth. We're your people. We're your people, black people. We're Democrats. Don't listen to those Republicans. It's all their fault. Everything that's bad in your cities is their fault. And we go, you stand there and you go, there are no Republicans in your cities. You can't blame the Republicans. It's not the Republicans doing it. It's the Democrats doing it. And so many of the black people I talked to understood that. We're able to come to that conversation. You know who couldn't listen to that? You know who got mad about that? You know who would come and confront me? It's not the black people. It's not the black people at all. I made a lot of black friends standing there with my Democrats use Black Lives to get vote signs. Fact. It's the little liberal white girls. The liberal white girls cannot handle it. Okay. The liberal white girls, a few liberal men, the white men, you know, they start. And of course, there's a few, when you get started, when you get in that crowd, you get the angry black girl who I found, she was so funny. She was so funny because she got all, she was a very animated woman. I could probably mimic her, but it would not be flattering. So I'm not going to do it just because I do impressions of people very well. And she was so over the top that it would be very easy, but I won't because it's not going to help at all. But she came up to me and she was all upset. And she's like, so you're saying that the Democrats have done and the Republicans are the same in what they've done for black people? And I said, no, I'm saying that the Democrats are worse. They have done more bad things to black people than the Republicans. And she was like, she was all upset and she tried to get her talking points. She didn't have any talking points. And this is the funny thing. And then she goes, then I had my bullhorn and I continued to speak. She goes, see, this is the thing. When we people of color speak, there's always somebody with a bullhorn. And I'm like, I hand her the bullhorn. I go, that's ridiculous. I will let you use my bullhorn. She's like, oh no, I don't want it. I'm like, then don't tell me I'm challenging your voice by having it. That's ridiculous. I've offered it to you now. So, unless you are in that crowd situation where there's attention to be gained from going after the Karen, whomever it is, you can have some great conversations one-on-one with black people. They are not turned on by the Democrat Party. I'm not surprised at the numbers that are coming out about the black vote because I am seeing it in people who are actually willing to get up and go and protest against police brutality. People who are obviously concerned. I know Karen keeps telling me don't say Karen. I didn't invent it. People who are concerned about black lives, who are concerned about this issue, but they're not radical leftists. Now, the organization, unfortunately, is linked in dramatically with radical leftists who started violence and protesting across the country and do that on a frequent basis. The history of Black Lives Matter, unfortunately, is a history of establishing and setting up riots. So, and they've done it over and over. They've done it in Ferguson. They've done it in Chicago. They've done it in New York now, across the country, Atlanta. We've seen it over and over, again and again. And so we must start to recognize what is being done, that it's Democrats that are benefiting from this. No, this is something. I'm coming over some comments. This is actually true. Republicans were the party against slavery, and Democrats were the party of slavery. This idea that the parties switched is actually not true. Only one man, Strom Thurmond, switched parties. The rest of the anti-black, pro-slavery Democrats stayed right there in the Democrat Party the whole time. Even Hillary Clinton praised members of the KKK, and no, the individuals that they praised did not remove themselves and disavow the KKK. They just got old. So yes, 100% read your history. 100% what Organic Riddle says. Study your history. Study your history. So important. So important. Good night, Sherry. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, Janet. How's it going? So, what's all this leading up to? I don't think this action that the Democrats are taking is going to win back the black votes like they think it is. And what it has done is some grave damage to their shutdown mentality. It is going to be upon us to use this moment to pressure our government, to pressure our state, to pressure our mayor to reopen. If they can gather and protest, we can go to church. In fact, the idea that we can gather and protest and that we can't go to church is insane. It's insane. So we can go to church. We can go to, in fact, there was a speedway I just showed on my page, actually. I scrolled past it. I forgot to look what city it was. There was a city a racetrack that held an event as a protest because they weren't allowed to have people at the event, but they could have a protest. So they held a racing protest against injustice and inequality everywhere. And they had 2,000 people show up. So, the game has changed because of these protests. Because of these protests, the game has changed. We know they've showed their hand. They've showed their hand. The virus is no longer a concern if it ever was a concern. Gatherings of large people are no longer a problem if they were ever a problem. Social distancing is no longer necessary if it was ever necessary. Masks are a joke if they were ever anything but a joke. Our rules on how many people could be in a business at any given time are irrelevant to the spread of the virus if they were ever relevant. We need to open our hospitals. We need to open our summer camps. We need to open our venues. We need to open our music halls. We need to open our bars. We need to open our schools, not with masks, not with guidelines, not with social distancing, none of this crap. None of this crap. Okay? Because we are not in a situation that we were told. We are not in this pandemic situation. We are in the situation of a novel virus. At best, an epidemic. At best, an epidemic. If not just a demic, I don't even know. What would that even be? We've seen the death rate go down, even as we've increased testing. And even as we've seen testing become less and less trustworthy, we're seeing a lot of information on, even the CDC is admitting that many of the tests produce false positives. I have a testing center just around the block from me here in Washington, D.C. No one is ever there. It's never busy. No one is using this testing center. So it's kind of ridiculous what we're seeing. Now, thank you, Chris, for sharing reopenamerica.org calls to action. We are continuing to have calls to action. We're working really hard to try to see if, to try to be here for the 4th of July, encourage the federal government, encourage the president to put on fireworks. The mayor is being a real pain in the bee about it, but certainly we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's time for everyone to get up off their couch, to get up on their feet, to stop fearing a virus, to stop fearing it. I hope that everyone's fear transformed over this weekend. I hope that realizing that what is really at risk is our national security. What is really at risk is our national sovereignty, our private property ownership, our ability to make a living, our businesses. Those things are at risk from violent attack. I hope that actually got people a little out of their fear zone when it comes to a virus. So we'll see how that goes going forward. We're going to need action. We're going to need to call. We're going to need to email. We're going to need to show up and protest. We're going to need to push on these lawsuits. We're going to need to call our sheriffs, demand that these orders are not enforced. We're going to need to talk to our district attorney and demand that they're not prosecuted. We're going to have to get involved and reform our departments of health. There's so much work. We're going to have to call our superintendents and our school boards, make sure that these guidelines are not being put in place. These are the concerns we have. We have a lot of reopening work to do. We can't take no for an answer anymore. We can't take no for an answer anymore. We have to take reopen. Reopen is the answer. Reopen is the answer. And why is that so important now more than ever before? With businesses that have been looted, with businesses that have been destroyed, with fear that have been struck in the hearts of men and women across the country, we need people to reopen, to get out so people can shop, people can get their hair done, people can go to, so that normal starts to happen. That's going to bring back people's spirit. That's going to bring back people's confidence. That's going to get rid of the most fear. Normal. When we had 9/11, you guys, I'm going to leave you on this. When we had 9/11, the planes at the buildings, it was where the nation was under physical attack in a very aggressive, devastating way. We came out, and President Bush, even in that time, he look. Don't even get me on the conspiracy theories. I agree. But he did do this one thing that he came out and he said, we have to not let the terrorists win. We have to keep living our normal life. And for all the other deep state craziness that he was involved with that whole situation, that was accurate. We do need to, whether it comes from anybody, we do need to continue to live our life. We can't let the terrorists win. Shutting down, not going to the pool, not going to the mall, not going to the concerts, not going to summer camp. These things are letting the terrorists win. So we need to stop doing that. We need to stop letting the deep state, the Bushes and the Clintons and the globalists of the world, we need to stop them in their tracks and say it's time to reopen. It's time to get our economy back. It's time to get our security back. We don't want to defund the police. We want to fund the police. We've got to get vocal. What I can tell you is the left is good at mobilizing and getting people to be someplace, even if they don't always agree. But once they're there, they're recruiting as hard as they can. And we need to be there too, recruiting. We need to be there talking to people as well. But you're afraid. Most people are like, oh, they're protests. They're violent. You can't go down there, Suzzanne, and talk to people. I'm like, yes, I can, and I did. Not only did I go down and talk to people one-on-one, I talked to people on a boulevard and got yelled at. But I still did it. You're still down there planting seeds. That's what they're doing. But they're more organized. They pay people to go plant the seeds. We need to, until we can afford to pay people to plant our seeds, we need to do it out of the spirit of America, out of the spirit of patriotism, about the desire to protect this great nation and our beautiful Constitution. So please go to our GoFundMe. Thank you, Chris. Please go to our GoFundMe. Tell DC Mayor to resign now on a mobile billboard. Help me stick it to the mayor. Help me call her out in a very public way. It's going to get some media attention. It's going to get that message out across the country. If people can riot, we can reopen. If people can riot, we can reopen. So help me out with that. Please help me out with that. We're doing really well. Like I said, we're all the way through the printing costs. We just need to raise the money to actually do the how many days we're going to rent. So I'm excited. We're closer and closer, but I need your help. So I'm in Facebook jail. They hate me. Zuckerberg hates me. Share. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back again on Wednesday. We'll see what happens by then. Maybe my account will be open. Maybe it won't. I have a 30-day ban. But we will be calling the New York Post tomorrow and letting them know they're getting shut down. And maybe they want to be mad with me. So who knows? Until next time, though, I'll keep you posted right here. And I think my friend Chesty LaRue, if you can go and find Chesty, Y, LaRue, LAROU, LaRue, Chesty LaRue. She's a good friend of mine, and she certainly will help keep track of Suzzanne. Until then, this is your girl, Suzzanne Monk. Pumping out.